Joining us now for World Brief and the review of some of the headlines of today's newspapers from around the world is Adefemi Akinsanya. Good morning, Adefemi.
Good morning, Dr. Reuben. Good morning, Ayo.
Good morning, Adefemi.
Hi. And good morning, Rufai. How's everybody doing? I hope you all had a wonderful weekend.
Love your new hairstyle.
Thank you. I love yours too. We're dabble-dabbling with color this week. We'll see how it goes. Alrighty, let me tell you what is happening around the world. Well, hopefully, we're having a little bit of a technical glitch. We'll take a very, very short break, and hopefully once we come back, we'll be able to tell you what's happening around the world. Let's take a short break. You're watching Arise, the world's standout news channel. Proudly independent for more than a decade. Always bold, always fresh. Winner of several awards, local and global. Winner of TV Channel of the Year from peers at the Broadcasting Organizations of Nigeria Awards. Winner of an Emmy from America's National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences. Still, we're changing the conversation to make sense of your world. We'll do it together, because now more than ever, you need a clear voice to guide you home. Arise News, awards, and beyond. Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Let's start our world brief with news surrounding the US elections. And a 49-year-old man named Vem Miller, armed with 2 guns, a high-capacity magazine, and fake passports, was arrested outside Donald Trump's rally in California over the weekend. Now, local police say the incident did not impact the safety of the former president or any attendees. Donald Trump spent the weekend defending his economic plan to raise tariffs and defend American car makers. Meanwhile, Kamala Harris attended services at a predominantly black church in Greenville, North Carolina. That's as the 2 candidates' running mates appeared on Fox News. Now, Tim Walz defended the vice president's views on stricter gun controls, and J.D. Vance repeated the former president's false claims that Venezuelan gangs were taking over Aurora over in Colorado. Let us not forget that President Joe Biden has surveyed the damage caused by Hurricane Milton in Florida, promising $612 million in aid while urging Congress to do more. Now, just 22 days to go until Election Day, US polls have Kamala Harris slightly ahead of Trump, but battleground state data shows very little between the 2 candidates. Moving on to the United Kingdom now, and the average number of children women are having in the UK is falling faster than any other G7 country since 2010. That's according to research by think tank, the Centre for Progressive Policy. Now let's take a look at this chart. According to CPP analysis, Italy saw the 2nd largest fall, followed by the United States, then Canada, France, and then Japan, while Germany saw a rise. Now, this decline in large parts has been blamed on austerity being government policies to reduce spending. However, CPP research also found that areas with higher deprivation saw faster falls in rates, which demonstrates the impact of government cuts to social security spending that have occurred over this time period. What is very interesting to note is that in previous decades, falls in fertility rates were due to more educated, higher income women prioritizing career over family, but in this instance, that is no longer the case. And lastly, Guyanese President Irfan Ali has announced several perks ahead of national elections next year, including free college tuition and a one-time cash payment of nearly $1,000 for every household in the oil-rich South American country. Ali also promised to cut power bills by half and to increase the monthly minimum wage from $350 to $500 starting next year. He told Parliament during a special session last week the recently wealthy nation of nearly 800,000 people can now afford to help residents via public aid programs. It's also worth noting that Guyana was once one of the poorest countries in South America, despite having large reserves of gold, diamonds, and bauxite. But it has been awash with money after a consortium, as we all know, led by ExxonMobil, discovered the first major oil deposits back in May 2015 off the country's Atlantic coast. Now, production of that oil began in December 2019 with output of some 645,000 barrels per day, and that's expected to soar to 1.3 million barrels per day by 2027. So it doesn't look as though oil resource wealth seems to be trickling down in Guyana, or hopefully.
But you also know the story that comes with oil or resource wealth?
Tell me.
It's the story that happened in Groningen in the Netherlands in the 50s when they discovered large deposits of gas.
The Dutch flu?
And Netherlands depended on gas, and it brought about something called the Dutch disease.
Sure.
And Guyana should be careful, because I see they're well on that path. They should also use the Norwegian model that says, we'll keep most of the proceeds into a foreign investment fund. Today, Norway's got so much money to spare.
Sure.
In those foreign reserves in Norway and those foreign investment funds, they've got well over $1 trillion. That if you were to split the money out, around Norwegian citizens, each citizen could get over $200,000. But they're saying no, they're still going to leave it there for the future of the country. So Guyana should take a lease from that. Nigeria, obviously, you know what happened to Nigeria. We can't go into all of that. Build on the infrastructure, build on the future, also keep some money aside. The truth is, the race is neck and neck. After the 2016 elections, all pollsters had to change the way they poll because of Trump.
Agreed.
And I'm even more scared now, because if it's neck and neck like that, I can see a +5 for Trump. Anytime, yes, from 2016 polls. Because Hillary was +5 ahead, with a margin of error of +2 or +3. Now, it's a margin of error of +4, and it's neck and neck. Because the bunch of voters, the silent majority that they always say, the people that vote big time in the urban areas, might just switch this election for Trump. So when you see the polls get scared, especially when it's neck and neck in states like Arizona, I'll tell you something very interesting. Joe Biden just won Arizona with 11,000 votes in the last election. So it's going to be neck and neck. And he might tip in the way of Trump this time around if care is not taken. So Harris has a lot more work to do.
Let's see.
A lot of work to do.
Let's
Let's talk about Guyana, because it sounds so familiar, so similar, and I wish they would take a playbook from what happened to Nigeria and other countries who discovered wealth. It's called the resource curse, whereby when a country discovers, especially oil, and then a number of economic impact based on that. In the interim or in the immediate, there's a boom. The country prospers. As you've heard, good leaders will then see a way for the oil wealth to trickle down to the most vulnerable. But in the end, what happens, and which some people fear about Guyana, is that sometimes the countries are too small, or perhaps do not have the legal expertise or experience to manage this oil boom. The other part of that is, of course, when there's a huge influx from oil wealth, it then means that the other natural resources suffer. And then because you're getting so much money from oil, other parts that you talked about, bauxite, gold, that they were already exporting, but it's so down the line compared to oil that it might suffer if they don't invest. And then one day wake up to find out that they are now oil dependent, as we found in our country, Nigeria. The third part, of course, is then that the income taxes as well. There's less emphasis placed on tax because of the amount of money coming in from oil. They're not really, so they don't strengthen the tax system or that social contract between the people and the government. So a lot of countries have gone through this, and perhaps there are a lot of lessons that can be learned from their experiences. But let's hope that Guyana is able to avoid that resource curse. And then very quickly on fertility rate in the UK. A lot of things, a lot of impact here. Beyond the economic aspect of things is also access to assisted fertility, and the fact that people are making choices to have children a bit later. So they're saying they'd be optimistic that later on maybe the numbers would reverse. Currently, the death rate in the UK far outweighs the birth rate. So it means that the gap between both of them is 16,300. What does this mean? Migration. This might also affect migration policies, because if you're having people in the UK not willing to have more children, you need to incentivize them and perhaps even attract people, because if it's found out that in student-friendly towns, in towns where there's migration, they have higher birth rates. So that's also something that might impact I don't know how Keir Starmer is going to deal with this, with migration issues.
Okay, the question with Guyana is this. Is the discovery of oil a blessing or a curse? And our response as a Nigerian is to say, may Nigeria not happen to Guyana. In 1796, Guyana was still a colony of the British. And in that 1796, the British had sugar plantations there. All that, was sustained up till 2009, a destination for ecotourism.
Sure.
Guyana has one of the best rainforests in the world. And many ecotourists went there, and it was a sugar plantation and all of that. Population, 800,000. But in 2015, ExxonMobil discovered oil in the coastal waters of Guyana. It was joined by Hess and Chinese National Oil Corporation, Offshore Oil Corporation, CNOC. And then the life of Guyana changed. Now the colonial architecture as of today has been replaced by glass buildings, by, all of new homes, new houses. So they are enjoying the prosperity of oil boom.
Correct.
The question with Guyana is that what is next? So you find the president ahead of the next elections saying, look, we'll give you people money, as Nigeria did during the windfall in the early 80s, early 70s, and said, oh, we'll give you money for you. So Guyana is caught in a perfect storm. Would oil blessing be a doom for it? Will it become a petroleum state? To become a petroleum state is not a good thing. So that's the thing about Guyana ahead of the elections. Every politician will say, I will give you largesse so that you can vote for me. But this is a society in transition, caught at the crossroads. At the time, the world is saying, dumb down on fossil fuels.
Sure.
But these developing countries that are finding oil are saying we will benefit from it
first.
Before you change international policy. Now, as for Trump, Van Miller, that's the name of the man from Las Vegas, who was caught at a place near Coachella. We have had some of our stars, performing there. But no threat to Trump, no threat to the attendees who were, ticket holders ferried to the venue about 3 miles away in buses. But the man will be in court on January 2 for illegal possession of handgun and loaded ammunition. But as you pointed out, yes, Kamala Harris was in North Carolina. Yes. The main issue at North Carolina was that she was saying, look, it is not true that the Democratic Party did not do well in response to hurricane in Florida. Yes. Hurricane Milan, Hurricane Helene, and incidentally yesterday, the president was in, Florida, yes. To visit Tampa Bay and other locations, and to make commitments and to say, it's not true. The misinformation that Donald Trump has been spreading. And then finally in the UK, 18.8% reduction in fertility. It will affect schools because there will be fewer schools, fewer students to send to schools. It will affect immigration, because more people will be needed to come and work there. The population is getting older. There will be a reduction in younger people. And, we say, we're told by the CPP that conducted the research on behalf of Sky News that this is as the result of austerity measures. And the most affected areas are the low poverty areas. But it's not only UK in the G7 countries affected. Other countries in Asia, elsewhere are affected because they don't want to have children. They have one child, 2 children. They say they cannot afford the third child because
I mean, they're
of
expensive.
austerity.
You tell us, are they expensive? Are children expensive? Are they?
The Lord says, go ye and multiply. That's what the Bible tells us.
A blessing, first of all,
Absolutely.
before expense comes
Children
into
are important blessing from
They are.
God.
But are
Go
they
ye and
expensive? Are
multiply.
they too expensive a blessing?
They're expensive, but they're a blessing.
Please don't encourage bachelors.
Oh,
Please.
I would never do such a thing. Thank you all for your comments. Let's move on now to some newspaper headlines across the globe. And of course, we begin here in Nigeria with This Day newspaper. This day's picture story has Ogun State Governor Prince Dapo Abiodun and the Awujale of Ijebu Land, Obasiku Kayode Adetono, on either side of the newly installed Tunde Odulaja as Lapo Ekun of Ijebu Ode. This day also leads with disruption within the PDP, as you've all already discussed. Alhaji Ahmed Yari Mohammed has accepted an appointment to replace national chairman of the party, Damagum. There's also news that the federal government is targeting the production of an additional 400,000 barrels per day in an effort to boost Nigeria's current output from the ongoing floating production, storage and offloading facility here in Lagos. The New Telegraph also has the political crisis in the People's Democratic Party on the front page. That says 9 of the party's 13 elected governors reportedly endorsed the suspension of the acting national chairman, Ambassador Umar Damagum. Now, a faction of the party also reportedly suspended the national secretary, Senator Senator Samuel Anyanwu. The Daily Trust now, it leads with Nigeria Hydrological Services Agency issuing warnings regarding imminent flooding in Adamawa, Taraba, Kogi, Nasarawa, Benue, Anambra, Bayelsa, Delta, Edo, Cross River, and River states. And that's because Cameroon plans to release waters from its Lagdo Dam on the Benue River in the Niger Basin. Let us not forget, the release of water from the Lagdo Dam back in 2022 caused massive flooding in Nigeria, leaving 603 people dead and 1.4 million people displaced, with 2,400 injured and 82,000 homes destroyed, as well as 332,000 hectares of farmland submerged in water. The Guardian, however, looks at the uncertainty states are experiencing in executing the new minimum wage. This is 2 months after the new figure of 70,000 naira per month was passed into law. The article says that some states are flirting with the possibility of getting away with paying a lower minimum wage, while other states, notably in the southwest, could start implementation soon. The Vanguard dedicated its front page to the petrol crisis with news the federal government has settled the 15 billion naira dispute between the NNPCL and oil marketers. Recall that the marketers had paid the NNPCL to lift products from the Dangote refinery before the full deregulation of petrol, but failed to get its supplies because of these price differentials caused by an increase in the product's price. But back then, the NNPCL insisted that the marketers must pay the price difference to get the product. The marketers, on the other hand, said that they would not pay since the NNPCL tied down their money over 3 months without any interest. Now, the Vanguard also has news that the price of bread is rising faster than the rate of inflation. The Punch, finally, reports that the federal government, through the Nigerian Customs Service, has today started to ground over 60 private jets owned by very important persons in the country over unpaid import duty running into several billions of naira. Let's take a look at some other African papers now. And the Daily Graphic of Ghana has the resignation of the Agricultural Development Bank board chairman, Akwamowa Ajampong, over bribery and unethical conduct allegations. Now, the Central Bank of Ghana had called for the chairman's resignation over a 2.4 million cedi payment Ajampong owed another person. And the Daily Nation of Kenya has accusations of state capture once again on its front page. Indian conglomerate Adani's entry saw a 56 billion shilling rise in the cost of health care system in the country. That's their headline, with a chart showing the rising cost of services from when quotes were submitted in January to May. And then lastly, it's very interesting, you have to take a look at the huge jump. And then lastly, the Daily Express, the front page of the Daily Express headline says that Labour has betrayed voters with 8 more years of illegal immigration. That's because on Sunday, the Home Office published contracts concerning the operation of processing centres in Kent. Those contracts are set to expire in 2032, which is why you have Robert Jenrick, who's pictured in blue there, who is one of the last two Conservative Party leadership finalists, accusing Labour leader and Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer of a total betrayal to the British public in terms of immigration.
Yeah, because it never solved the problem.
Thank you so much, Adefemi. We're out of time. We'd love to take the stories. There's so many things to talk about, but hopefully tomorrow we're able to dissect the newspapers from around the world.